good, everyone? It's Moose, and thank you so much for joining me back here. We all know that I really enjoy fantasy. It's my favorite genre. It's the thing I read most, whether it be middle grade. I don't read a ton of middle grade, but I don't dislike middle grade. It's just not what I typically reach for. I love YA. I'm getting more into adult. Fantasy is my thing. I dig it. So today I wanted to recommend 5 different fantasies that I think you should read. I kind of have a variety of stuff on this list. All of them come from my shelf, so there are plenty of other ones that of course I think you should read, but I'm talking about the 5 fantasies that I own that I think you should read. First up, we have Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is an adult fantasy, and this is kind of like a D&D campaign is what I've heard many people compare it to. I have personally never played D&D, so I can't really attest to that on my own, but apparently it's like a D&D campaign. Basically, it's a band of men. I don't know how you would say it. The guys in this book used to be a band of mercenaries, pretty much, who kind of disbanded, and now they're getting back together for a certain reason that I'm not going to spoil. This book is lighthearted with some deeper elements to it, while also being funny throughout the whole thing, because it's these old men who are kind of past their prime where they really shouldn't be mercenaries anymore. They shouldn't be out fighting creatures and waging wars and all that kind of stuff anymore, but they have to. They're kind of forced into it. And so there's kind of this dynamic of them having to do these things while their bodies are kind of not able to keep up like they used to be. The characters in this book are very, very enjoyable. The main character is great. My favorite character is one of the side characters who's a wizard. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book, even having not played D&D. So I don't think you have to have played D&D to enjoy this. Maybe you would get more enjoyment out of it if you have played D&D, but that's definitely not a requirement. Along with that, there are a lot of rock band references apparently within this book. I'm not a big rock fan. I don't really listen to that much music in general. So again, maybe you would find more enjoyment in this book if you understood those references, but I don't feel like missing those references took away from my enjoyment at all. So if you're looking to get into fantasy, but you're not really looking for the nitty-gritty, hard-hitting fantasies, this might be a good option for you. It's full of humor and lovable characters. Next up, I have the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. This might be unfair for me to put on this video because I've only read the first 2. This is the second one. I've loaned my first one to someone else, but honestly, I like the second one better anyways, so it kind of works out. So yes, I've only read the first 2, so maybe I can only recommend the first 2. But from what I've read, the series is great. It's a great adult fantasy. If you've played the video game, it's phenomenal. It's different than the video game and it's different than the show. So all 3 are very different. They all deal with Geralt. They all deal with, not Geralt, Geralt. They all deal with the same characters, just at different points in the story, if that makes sense. So the first one, Blood of Elves, was a lot of background. It's a lot of build-up to what's happening in this one, The Time of Contempt. Again, I like The Time of Contempt better, so if you're struggling through the first one, all I can say is that it gets better. And I anticipate the third one to be even better than this one, so I recommend them so far. I'm excited to continue on with the series. Next up, I have a series that I can't seem to stop talking about here on my channel. I have the Becca Cooper trilogy by Tamora Pierce. This is a middle grade YA fantasy series, crime detective series. In my head, these start out more middle grade and progressively get more YA as the series goes on, but I honestly think anybody can enjoy them. So this series follows our main protagonist named Becca Cooper, who is in training to, in the first one at least, she's in training to be what's called a provost guard, which is basically just like a policeman detective person in this fantasy world. So in the first one, she's a puppy, she's a dog in training. In the second one, she is a dog. And in the third one, she's kind of established herself and has kind of become one of the greats, if you will. I mentioned this is kind of like a detective crime type series. So each book follows a different crime that Becca and her partners are trying to solve. In the first one, it's like murder mystery type stuff. There's a bunch of murders going on in her town. She and her partners are trying to figure out what's going on, who's doing it, why it's happening, that kind of thing. The second one is basically about money laundering. There are fake money being put into the system in one of the bigger towns nearby. So Becca and her female partner named Goodwin are tasked with going and discovering who's putting this money into the system and kind of stopping it. And then the third one is about Becca and her male partner, Tunstall, who are sent on an important quest because the prince has been kidnapped. This little boy has been kidnapped, and Becca is a scent hound handler, so she and her hound are notorious for being able to sniff people out and find what needs to be found. So she and Tunstall and her dog Achu are sent to get the prince. These are great. I have a whole review on them that I will link for you if you would like to know more about them a little more in depth. Either way, I definitely recommend them, especially if you're wanting kind of a detective story set in a fantasy world. Excellent. Next up, I also have one that I kind of rave about a lot here on my channel. I have Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I've been really into Naomi Novik here lately. I've read 2 of her books, but I feel like I enjoy her more every time I read her. This was the first book I read by her. I recently read Spinning Silver, which is her other retell-esque book. This one is supposed to be a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I'll be honest, I don't see that much. It's very loose if it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. With that being said though, it's still a beautiful story. Her writing definitely takes some time to get used to, and the magic in her worlds in general are just different than anything else I've read. She doesn't spend a whole lot of time explaining things. She kind of just throws you into these worlds and expects you as a reader to be able to put the pieces together for yourself. And I don't hate that. I actually kind of enjoy that about her writing. She also uses some dialect that you might not be familiar with. I'm not familiar with it, but you kind of pick up on what it means as you read through. Her characters are usually not very open. I don't feel like you get to know the characters very much, but you still end up caring about them for some reason. In this particular book, the main character, I can't remember her name, it's been a while since I've read this one. The main character lives in this town, and every couple years, every few years, every 10 years maybe, something like that, the dragon, which is basically like a wizard that protects their land, takes one of the girls from their village, from their land, to kind of, well, the people don't know why he takes the girl, but our main character is in this group, in this pot of girls who are up for the taking. The year she was born just happens to coincide with the age that you have to be taken by the dragon. Lo and behold, of course, she's the one that's taken, and it's kind of just their journey throughout that. She ends up helping him save the land from this kind of plague, darkness type thing that's kind of overshadowing everything. Again, it takes a little bit to get used to, but it grows on you, and I think you should at least give it a try. I think you should give her a try. I am coming to find that she might be one of my new favorite authors. Last up, I have kind of one of the mothers of fantasy. It's not Lord of the Rings. I can't in good conscience recommend that book, that trilogy in this video, because I haven't read it since I was in middle school. And quite frankly, at the age I read it, it was way over my head. So I need to reread those as an adult before I talk about them extensively here on my channel. Maybe I'll do a reading vlog or something when I read those. I don't know. Either way, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I read these last year for the first time. I don't know how I've gone, how old am I? 23 years. And I'm just now getting around to reading these, but I think you should read them too. The only one I didn't really care much for was The Horse and His Boy, Boy and His Horse, whatever it's called. I didn't care much for that one. Otherwise though, they are so enjoyable. This is a middle grade series. There's tons of Christian symbolism in these books that I want to do a video on. I want to go through and tab all of the Christian symbols that I could find when reading through them. and kind of just talk about them a little bit. That was really enjoyable for me to do while reading through these. I don't typically annotate when I read, but I did bookmark a lot of that kind of stuff. I was looking for that kind of stuff when I was reading through these, and it made my experience so much more enjoyable. Are they my absolute favorite? No. I think they're a lot of people's favorites because of a nostalgia factor, and because I was 23 when I read these for the first time, I don't have that factor attached to these. I really like the movie and the video game growing up, but the books themselves, I don't have that. Even still though, I think they're a great story. I think it's kind of one of those things that at this point, if you want to be cultured in reading, this is one of the things you need to read. There are so many allusions to it, so many people talk about it, so many other stories draw elements from it. I think it's just important, really, in the literature nowadays. And quite frankly, they're enjoyable. I think you should read them. So yeah, there you go. Those are 5 fantasies I think you should read just based on what is on my shelf. Of course, there are way more out there that I don't personally own, but here are 5 that I do own that I think you should give a chance. Again, I tried to make this list kind of diverse. I have some adult, I have some YA, I have some middle grade, I have some hard-hitting adult, I have some lighter, funnier adult. I tried to make it to kind of give everybody something, maybe. And fantasy is always a good option if you're looking for something to read, just in my personal opinion. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know down below what fantasies are your favorite. What fantasies do I need to read? I know I need to read some Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I know I need to read some of him, and it's hopefully going to be a priority here sometime soon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below. You guys are awesome. I am so thankful for you, and we'll be back here next time. See ya!